Georges Laraque's parents immigrated to Canada from Haiti. Playing hockey as a kid in Quebec, Laraque endured racial abuse. As an NHL player for a dozen years, he was never afraid to talk about racism, while his NHL brethren remained quiet. In the wake of George Floyd's death, they are quiet no longer, and Georges Laraque is our guest on After Hours. Georges Laraque is in Montreal. Louie DeBrusk, as usual, is at his home in Edmonton. George, thanks for taking the time today to give us your perspective on current events. And we will get to the denouncement of racism in hockey in a moment. But first, the broader picture. The killing of George Floyd has people demanding change through large-scale protests, some peaceful, some violence. What's your take on what's going on right now, not just in the U.S. and North America, but worldwide?
Well, to start, people just have to realize that racism has always been there. It's just that now with social media and everything, racism today is just getting filmed. So now people are seeing how outrageous the last hundreds of years has been for people of minorities. And now people are talking about it because everything is filmed. Now everything that you see before you, when you can see it, you witness it. So when I look at all that stuff, things haven't changed. You know, you see many movements, many riots. Even if people do a specific walk about the issue, it doesn't change. There's some people that will take advantage of those walks to break stuff, and things is never going to get better. The only way that things could be better, that's the only way that we could change all this, is with action. And to me, the only way that I could see this, because it's great to see the support from everyone, unbelievable athletes of all colors talking about the unity and how this has to stop. Everybody's saying that it has to stop, but there's no measure. So my idea, what should happen is all government, everybody that works for the government, whether you're a police officer, nurse, doctor, I don't know, plumber, like not plumber, sorry, fireman, or anything like this, there should be zero tolerance. You get caught one time with a racist comment or anything, you're out. You get fired. There's no second chances. The minute that every police officer, everybody knows that there's zero tolerance, nobody's going to study to be a police officer and do something stupid once to get fired after. Because the thing is, we have to understand, people that are racist, you'll never be able to change them. Like when they're looking at all that stuff going on TV, they're laughing, they love it, they're getting off on it because that's what they want to create. They want to create division, they want to create fear. But if you force them, if you put them in a position that is going to cost them money, if publicly they don't respect another person, because you can't change somebody to be racist or not, but you could force them to be respectful towards other people. So if the government force this on everyone, any government job, you lose your job if you get caught once just using any form of racism, you're out. You're going to clean up the cops, anything else. First things. Second things. Now all the other businesses, everyone that owns a business, somebody that works for you, they do an act of racism, you kick them out. You throw them out. You fire them, and then you hire somebody else. So you clean up all the business too. So when you look at this, you're touching the work of everyone. Because now people are they're gonna be very careful at work. Even they're gonna have to be respectful to one another because they won't gonna want to lose their job. And I'll go even further than that. Forget a speeding tickets if we're going too fast. We're not giving a ticket to somebody that is using publicly racial slur or attacking anyone because there's damage to this. So if you give a ticket with proof again that every time somebody does that, they're gonna be forced to be respectful even though they're racist. So it's with measure like this that things are going to change. But if we talk about education and it starts with the kids and all that stuff, we've been saying that for years and nothing's been going on. So the only way that things could happen now is if we make change and implement them now. And then that way it'll force everyone to be respectful, because if we don't, in 10 years, we're going to do another panel discussion like this, guys, and we're going to talk about the same issues.
George, you mentioned video and things are being videoed now. Have you even been able to watch the whole George Floyd death video?
Well, I've seen it because I was so much in disbelief that I had to watch it a couple times to see what happened. See, the things about that is, first of all, I just want to say that when we talk about police, my brother's a police officer for 20 years now. We can't put them on in the same boat. Most of police officers, they do an unbelievable job. They put their life at risk for all of us. They go to bat all the time. And we have to recognize that most of them do a good job. unfortunately, because of a couple rotten ones, you know, the broad picture of it, sometimes people, they do march for police brutality and stuff, but most of them are good. So we can't put them all in the same boat. What happened in Minnesota, I looked it up a bit. I look at what happened to Floyd, and hopefully that cop goes to jail, because what he's done, you know, putting his knee in his neck for so long is unacceptable. But I also saw that in Minnesota, it happened 90 times that they controlled someone on the ground with their knee on the neck. And a third of those 90 arrestations that they used that technique, which should be illegal, they did it to white people too. They put their neck on white people too. So it's not just a race thing. It's a thing that they do down there that is ridiculous. It's just that when they did it to white people, they didn't hold their knee on their neck for 9 minutes like they did to Floyd. But when I look at that stuff, you know what's going on. You also have to look at the point that there's the police officers that were with him that lose their job, and also that are getting charged. There were immigrants too that were standing there. So it's a big statement to say that it's a racial thing, what happened to him. Because George Floyd, we can't forget, he's a criminal. He get arrested because he did something. What that did to me, Louis, when I saw what happened, is just, it brings the conversation about racism in a society. I really talk about a world broad picture of it, and not just that incident, because, you know, the Arbery one to me is more flagrant racism, because you heard that we heard that before they shot him, they called him the N-word and they were chasing him and stuff. That's flagrant racism and stuff, right? So every situation are different, but one thing that is not different today in our society is that racism, and not just towards Black people, towards Native people, towards Indian people, towards Muslim people, and all that, everybody are suffering a form of racism. And now we're talking a little bit more and more, but there's actually no action that are going on. And that's why every year now we see sad incident like this. It's never going to stop.
So, George, before George Floyd, there were the deaths of Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, all of which, and that's just to name a few, and all of those deaths produced outrage, but nothing on a scale like we're seeing now. So when you saw what happened to George Floyd, did you think, that's it, this is when it boils over?
Well, it boiled over already a long time before. It's not the first time we've seen riot over this, about what's going on. It's just that with that video of what he's done, now people are even more vocal about it, because as I said, with social media now, more people have seen it, which as before, it was just a certain region of people that would know what's going on. Because you should see the amount of video, ever since that, the amount of video that I got of arrests that was the same way that happened to minorities. I received, every day I could have posted 2, 3 different arrestations, like people that got arrested the same way. It was insane. Stuff that we've never even seen before, that people were like, how come this wasn't online? How come this wasn't online? That's what's going on now. Now, everything that happens, everybody, every cops is getting filmed. There's so many things that's going on. So when I see this, I'm just like, am I surprised? No. Is it going to happen? Yeah. Because the guy that is running the United States is known to have some behavioral like racism, some stuff that we've heard about him. So he's not uniting people, he's dividing people. And when you hear stuff about the KK association to get voting and all that stuff, again, it could be speculation. I'm not too sure because I don't live in the States, but I don't think the right guy is in place to unite people to talk about racism. Because when I talk about a solution to say zero tolerance for racism in the government job, I don't see Trump tomorrow talking to everybody that works for the government, for the police, and say, you know what, one more incident and you're out, you're fired. You'll never do that. But this is where we have to go. There's got to be action now, because walking and all that stuff is not going to change anything.
Okay, let's get to hockey's place in all this. Louie.
George, as you know, hockey players are famous for staying in their lanes and not saying a whole lot, usually not a real vocal bunch. Are you surprised at the number of hockey players that have come out with statements and vocalizing, condemning racism?
Just to start, people have to understand that hockey is a very conservative sport. It's not like all the other sports where people are more vocal and they talk about. So you're so right about that. So I didn't expect that many guys talking, because usually we don't say anything. And if a guy is too flamboyant, we're saying that he's in the wrong sport and he should be playing basketball or football. That's the mentality of hockey. But just to see like guys like McDavid, Crosby, leaders that they don't have to say anything because it's a very sensitive subject and you don't want to make a mistake in the words that you do. Because with this crisis now, with what's going on with coronavirus, and now all this racist stuff, people, they're already boiling in frustration, and now it just explodes. So just to every time you even say something, you got to watch every word because there's people watching over it and ready to criticize you if you make a mistake. So it was awesome to see a unity, to see a lot of guys talking about the issue, to say that there is a problem and that they notice it. Because when there's an issue like this happen, if it's only minorities that talk about it, it's not the same. But now you see people from all regions, from all over the place, all nationalities talking about it. So they're addressing the problem. The only thing though, as I said earlier, it's nice to see that everybody recognizes that there is a problem and that we have to do something about it. But how many times are we going to talk about we have to do something about it? Something has to happen. There's got to be solution. And nobody talks about solution. You're just talking about the problem and how they'd like to be part of the solution. But none of us can change somebody from being racist to not being racist, right? You have to put measure to force them to be respectful to one another. And when you take out of the money out of the pocket of people when they do bad stuff, that's the only way. Just like suspension in hockey, you put suspension to get dirty plays out of the game. People that are racist take money out of their pocket. You got to force them to be respectful.
Well, George, on that point, it is easy to condemn racism, and we should all do that. But taking action demands much more of a commitment. Specifically for you, what does action from NHL players look like?
Well, if you look at NHL players, right, there's so many things that they do for like diversity task force, guys going in different community, make it hockey accessible for everyone. There's a diversity task force in the NHL that I think that it should grow more, because the thing is that the diversity task force right now is run by Willie O'Ree, which is 80 years old, and he's alone and he's close to retirement. I think that with what's going on right now, the NHL needs to expand that, having more guys going in different communities to make hockey more accessible to everyone, because hockey is already known as a white man's sport, but you got to show inclusion, going all over the place to do that. So you got to grow this program in different communities to show that, what hockey is for everyone. And to show that, already in hockey, there's no problem racism in hockey. Like, you see everybody in every team, it's United Nations, people come from all over the place, and you respect a guy if he goes to war with you and he helps you win. That's what you want. So you don't care where the guys come from. I've never seen like in a team like problem with that. It's awesome in hockey. The culture of it is completely different than a lot of other sports. And even most of the time, and majority of the time, the fans are great. Hockey fans are unreal. But it's just that now, because of the mentality hockey has in the rest of the world, because there's not many minorities playing it, they should just expand to show that, we want to show those kids that even though there's not many role models, hockey is for everyone. Give them a chance to learn about hockey and to play it, because hockey is battling right now with basketball, football, soccer, all that sport in a scale in the States in terms of popularity. We know that Batman is trying to grow hockey in the States to bring more TV revenue. You look at football, there's so many TV revenue that just the TV revenue pays for the payroll of the entire team. But if you want to grow hockey in the States, it has to go towards the minorities. But because all of the parents think that hockey is a white man's sport, they don't put their kids into hockey. And that's what's killing hockey. That's why the rating in the States is not as high as we would like to, because we need to make it known and make it more accessible. So doing that, expanding this program, you'll see more current players sometimes going out, going to places, play with them and showing them about their team. And then by doing that, by growing hockey, it'll help grow the game, grow the revenue, and then it'll be a win-win for the league and for the players.
So statements from NHL players keep coming, and they're all apologetic. Louie, you want to follow up on that?
I do. I want to follow up on one in particular, and it's Patrice Bergeron, who, has been always known to not have a social footprint. He stays off of social media, but he felt absolutely necessary to step forward with a statement about the situation. And he's one of the most respected guys in the game, no question about that. Silence of everyone allows racism to fester and continue. Silence is not an option for me anymore. Just some of the words that he said. But George, when you hear a player like Patrice Bergeron come forward and speak like this, do you feel that this is a sign that things are heading in the right direction?
Well, again, Patrice Bergeron is such a leader. Like, not just because he won the cup, but on and off the ice, from the beginning of his career, he's always been a true example. This guy has done so much in the community for kids in Boston, as well in Quebec City. He's always accessible. And you talk to anyone, no one has anything negative to say about him. He's a true example of everything that he said. So just the statement and the way he wrote it. And he didn't just do that. He also donated $50,000 to 2 different organizations that are helping out fight racism. So that's just to tell you the type of person that he is. I didn't have to do that. And it's just awesome to see that, like a guy like that, in the NHL, he's a big ambassador for the NHL. And when you have ambassadors like this that are talking to the world, and this message, and I reposted it when the Boston Bruce put its message out there, what that does, and all the role model, everybody that are looking at this, they're looking at this and they're saying, okay, it's no longer just a Black issue. It becomes a worldwide issue because white, like prominent hockey players, are also talking about it. So they're saying that it's affecting them. So people are looking at this more, because in the future, years ago, when that type of stuff was viewed as a Black issue, and people were just brushing it up. They'd be like, oh, they're complaining again. No big deal. Let them cry. Let them complain. But now, when guys like Patrice Bergeron talks like this, and again, it's not like a QB in the NFL that is white, but most of his team is Black. And you could say, well, he needs to be protected by the rest of his team. He needs to be accepted, the QB, right? Patrice Bergeron plays on a team that there's no Black players in. And he plays in a league where there's pretty much no Black players. So a statement from any white player in the NHL is a big statement, because they see what's going on. They're talking about it. And now people are like, oh my God, if he's talking about this and there's no one even on his team and he's witnessing stuff and he can't take it, that says a lot about where the situation is today.
So, George, the call to action for NHL players came from Evander Kane when he appeared on ESPN just over a week ago. And he said, and I quote, "We've been outraged for hundreds of years and nothing's changed. It's time for guys like Tom Brady and Sidney Crosby and those types of figures to speak up about what's right, and clearly in this case, what is so unbelievably wrong," unquote. And Sidney Crosby did speak up midweek with a statement in which he pledged to listen and educate himself on how he can try to help to make a difference. So what did you think of the way Evander Kane put himself out there?
I thought it was not fair. It's not fair to do that. You can't force somebody to speak out about that stuff. You can't force somebody to speak out about something so sensitive, to talk about something they don't understand. You can't. It's not right to do that. Everybody has a freedom of speech. And I played with Crosby. I played with him. He is an unbelievable human being, the best ambassador NHL has had after Wayne Gretzky. I played with him. There's nobody in NHL that has more requests every day than Crosby, with organization, with kids. He always smiled and he's always available for everyone. The guy cannot do everything. It's insane. And yeah, he did a statement. He didn't have to, but he did it. But to criticize one of the best ambassadors in the game that's been so good for the game, and one of the reasons why Evander Kane is making the revenue that he is now is because of an ambassador like this that helped to grow the game, to help to grow the revenue. So I think that we have to respect a guy like Crosby much more than criticize the fact that his statement is not out yet. Because he didn't have to, and he took his time to do it, to make sure to do it the right way. And I have no problem with that. And I wouldn't have any problem if he didn't want either, because he does so much for the game that, it's not fair that every time something happened, to pin it on the guy and say, you should say something. Because at the end of the day, as I said, if we get every player in the league of every team to write a statement, okay, it's going to recognize the fact that there's a problem and we all unified for it. But talking about it is not the solution. As I said earlier, the solution is action. So we all brought it up, and there's more and more people that's going to brought it up more. But now it's to the end of people that run the government and everyone that runs businesses.
Yeah, just though in defense of Evander Kane, I would guess that he wasn't targeting Sidney Crosby specifically. He was just calling out for some help from some of the big names in the game. Yeah,
but again, you could call all the names that you want, but what is it going to do? I think that there is enough name that is spoken about it, don't you think? Like, how many more people do we need to speak out about? You want another 100, another 1,000 message on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter to write how they're feeling about this and how bad it is. We could have 10,000 more athletes to write about it. What is that going to do? We're going to say, yeah, okay, we recognize it, but what's the next step? When is it going to be a next step? And is it going to be a next step? All we're going to talk about is all the quote that everybody has done and nothing has changed. Athletes, other than bringing it up like this, we can do anything else. We can do the action. The action has to talk from the government, because it doesn't matter what we say. If tomorrow there's another act of a police racism incident that happened, we could say whatever we want, but that's not going to change. The government could change that though with rules. So that's why it's awesome to see this support. But right now, after what's been going on for years, we need action now. We need action. No more of just having words of everyone talking about this issue. I think that it's time to see like real action, true actions.
All right, Evander Kane has not gone quiet, nor should he. So here's something he posted on his Twitter account, and I'll read the text first and then we'll listen. If you know me, think you know me, played with me, coached me, hate me, it doesn't matter. Just ask yourself this, because I see a lot of you still sitting. Now let's listen.
Every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens, if you as a white person would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
So, George, I'm not even sure where that's from, but it's very powerful. And I'm wondering if, to you, that's the essence of people of white privilege like Louie and me trying to understand racism.
Yeah, well, to start, I have to thank Evander Kane, because he's one of the few colored players in the league, and he's not afraid to be vocal about it. And it's not easy when you're one of the only one. In the NFL, it's easy because there's so many minorities around you that are supporting you. But in the NHL, he's pretty much alone. So that's why what he's doing right now, this battle, it's awesome, especially the fact that he's an active player. But what we just heard says a lot. It says a lot, because people, they recognize it, and not just athletes, because we got a statement from all the athletes recognize it, but it's just everyday people now recognizing that there is a difference, because with the treatment that black people get towards white people. You see a black, like, I'll talk to you about my cousin, for example, in Montreal. When they walk on the street, and some of them, because of my genetic, they're as big as me, right? When they walk on the street, like in Montreal or whatever, just on a sidewalk, there's people that are crossing on the other side of the sidewalk because they're afraid. They don't know them, but they're afraid. The image of it. Some people are just afraid of black people for no reason. That's how crazy that is. And, when you go to clubs, so many times it happened when I was playing the NHL. My cousin tried to go to a club, they couldn't get in. And when I came in, because people knew me, I could bring him in. Even in clubs, even in places that you go, even today in 2020, sometimes, there's black people, there's going to be a problem. There's a stereotype that comes with it. People, they're having this idea that there's two black people in a club, it's not going to be good for business. There could be gangs, there could be shooting, something could be bad is going on. So it's actually true. People are recognizing the fact that there's a double standard for minorities, and not just for black people. Native American are getting it too. Tons. I've got tons of messages from people that are Native that are getting, blamed for racism and stuff, and people that are Muslim and all different type of nationalities, not just the blacks. But people right now, they're doing a generalization, and it's actually true, and they're recognizing it. And that's why, again, as I said, we're recognizing tons of stuff today, but nothing is changing. And I think it's just time for action and not just recognizing.
George, I want to go back a little bit to your childhood, and just as recent as this week, talking on Bob Stauffer's Oilers Now, you talked about your experience as a child, being a black player in a predominantly white sport. Just for the record, talk about those experiences and how hard that was and difficult for you dealing with racism.
Yeah, in my minor hockey, it was so bad. And I'm 43, so we're not talking 100 years ago, right? We're talking about 30 years ago. I was playing minor hockey, and people from the stands, they would call me the N-word. Everybody was from the stands, all the parents, players from the other team. I got called the N-word so much when I played minor hockey that if you didn't know me and you watched me play, you would think that it was my name. That's how bad that it was. It was so bad that my parents, they wouldn't go to watch me in minor hockey. And I was a kid. I was a child, not a teen. They were like, they didn't want me to play hockey because it was like, you can't play hockey with this environment because you're going to grow with frustration. It's not going to be good for you. They were saying that to me when I was a child. And when I was a child, I was like, no, I can't stop. Win. I'm going to prove to them to make it to the NHL. But I was saying, I was 8 years old when I was saying that. What do I know at 7, 8 years old when I tell my parents that, no, I still want to play? So what my parents said to me, there's like, okay, we can't go anymore. You're going to have to go on your own. So sometimes in the winter, I would take my bike and go in the snow with my equipment on my back, and I would fall on the snow. People would laugh at me, and I would still go to the rink to go and play hockey. What my parents told me when I was a kid, they're like, we're going to let you play, but if we see it's affecting you, if we see you cry, we're going to pull you off hockey. So what I would do when I would go home, because when you get so many people attacking you from your race and you're alone, you can't do anything, I would cry, but I would cry in silence because if my parents saw me, I would hide it from them. So at night, I would cry on my pillow and make sure I don't make any noise so they don't pull me from hockey, to show them that it wasn't affecting me. And what helped me out lots is actually when I was a kid again, at the time that I was really struggling with that, I fall into Jackie Robinson autobiography. There was a kid version of it, and it explains to you how he explains to you through that autobiography that when he made it to Major League Baseball, he had to go through tons of racism to make it as a child. And he was using that racism into motivation to make it to Major League Baseball. So when I read his book, I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. When people are going to call me the N-word, I'm going to work harder and I'm going to use it as motivation to make it to the NHL. And when I do, I'm going to make a book, my own autobiography like Jackie Robinson, to inspire the minority that wants to play hockey that they can. And after I played 13 years in the NHL, I wrote my own autobiography like Jackie in French and English. It became a bestseller. And I talk about my story to encourage minorities that might want to play hockey that are saying it's not a sport for me, to see what I went through. So if they're going through some of the stuff that I've been through, they're going to use that as a motivation too. Because it's crazy. When I was 15 years old, that's very important to say. Because of my genetics and many physical attributes, I had to make a choice between hockey, soccer, and football. Actually, Danny McChocha was my coach in football. I met him. And when I was making that choice, it's like, George, don't pick hockey. You'll never make it in hockey. You'll never make it in the NHL. You're black. Stay with football. You have a career there, because I was his running back. And I told him, no, I got to stay with hockey. And many years later, when I saw him in Edmonton, he was coaching the Eskimos. I said, you remember that conversation when we were 15 years old? And he kind of laughed. He said, yeah, I knew you would have come and seen me. But the reason why I picked hockey, because my favorite sport in the world is actually soccer. I picked hockey because all the racism that I went through as a kid, if I would have picked another sport in my mind, everybody that called me the N-word would have won. They would have won. They would have made me quit. But I had a mission. I had a mission to make it, to prove them wrong. So when I made it to the NHL, I thanked everyone that called me the N-word, because I said I used it as a motivation to show you that you were wrong. And despite what you said, I made it, and I played for 13 years. That to me was my biggest obstacle that I had in life. And that's what I had to stick with hockey.
It was a great victory. So that leads, George, to this question. For as much as players are promising to listen and try to make a difference now, did you ever, on any of the 4 NHL teams on which you played, ever get into a deep discussion with a teammate where that teammate said to you, George, tell me what it was like. Tell me about what you had to endure to get to the NHL.
To be honest with you, no. Never had this conversation with anyone, because in the NHL, we didn't look at color. There's one time in Edmonton, there were 5 black guys in the team. There was Anson Carter, Mike Greer, Sean Brown, and Joaquin Gage and me. We went places that people thought were the Eskimos. It was funny, but no, nobody even talked about it. The only time in the NHL that had an incident, as you guys probably know, is with Sean Avery when we were playing in LA, and he called me a monkey, and I was flabbergasted. I didn't know what to do, and I was like, do I clobber him in the head with my stick? What do I do? If I do this, my career is done. And that was my only incident I had in 13 years in the NHL. Other than that, I felt respected from everyone else. And you know what was awesome about that incident is the unity of my team, the unity, because after the game, we were parked in a Staples Center. You know, the bus is underneath the Staples before going back home to Edmonton. And Sean Avery came out of went on the ground because his car is parked on the ground at Staples Center. And when he went to his car, Craig McTavish, my coach, came out of the bus to confront him about what he said to me. And my entire team followed him. I've never felt so good as an enforcer that fights with teammates when you see your coach and your teammates going after someone that calls you a racial slur. The unity, what that did, or room, what it did to me, that feeling to see this, I will never forget this till I die. What Macti did when he came out, and they didn't have to, and they did that, just showed that they all stood by me with this incident when it happened. And I remember the NHL, they couldn't suspend them because obviously he denied it. So, but every time I played him in the future, they give me a mic. So if you ever said anything, they would catch him on a mic. But I think he found out about it, but because he never said another word to me when I played him in the future.
I'd like to add that because I played with you, George, and I've always told people you were always very forthright and never afraid to shy away from the conversation of racism. You were never afraid to talk about that in your experiences. But we never did have that conversation. That wasn't a conversation that you and I had. We spent lots of time together playing, covering you as an analyst, and also through charity work that we've done together. But maybe now that conversation can happen. Maybe now that's something that should happen, because that conversation needs to be more prevalent amongst your teammates, amongst white teammates with black teammates, talking about what you experienced and how you felt about that growing up and throughout the course of your journey to the National Hockey League.
Yeah, well, right now, and that's why it's going on right now. People are talking about their journey, right? Whatever it has been through, so people can understand. They can understand what it's like to be a minority, because this is the thing that people have to realize is making it to the NHL. Even you, Louie, you play in the NHL. When you're a kid and everybody wants to play in the NHL, Louie, the odds of you playing in the NHL is what? 1%? 0.001%? Imagine being a minority, the odds of playing the NHL, what it is. It's crazy to say, but if it's 1% for you, Louie, your chance of making it in the NHL when you're a kid, you said you wanted to play. My parents were born in Haiti. They came to Montreal at 20 years old. And I grew up in a city where we were the only black family, and I got called the N-word every day. And my parents didn't want me to play hockey. At that time, when I said I wanted to play in the NHL, what was my odds? 0.0000001%? Just because I was a minority, the odds for me to make it to the NHL is harder than a white kid that has all the support and that doesn't have the hurdle of racism. So every black athletes, in especially the sport of hockey or other sport that there's not many minorities, they have an extra hurdle that white people don't have. So the character is much stronger because they go through something that no one should ever go through. And that's the story that everybody has to understand about the character and what it takes to be a minority to succeed in the world of sports. And mostly in the world of hockey, not so much basketball, football, because there's many African-American, but some of the other sport, there's not that many. So when you recognize that, you recognize the fact that I didn't have the same chance as a normal kid, then you know that in a society, that's the way it is. Not just in sports, but in everyday life, in everyday in society. You just have to work harder. And often when I talk to minorities, because I do many public talks, I go all over the place, and this is actually a reality that we can change. What I always tell people, as I said, okay, yes, to succeed in life, to have a job, you probably have to work harder than a person next to you because of your color. But I always rationalize saying that, well, what's worse, working harder here when you have a chance to still achieve your dream, or being back in your country when you have no chance to work, you're living in poverty and in wars, and it's much worse. That's how I rationalize it when I say it, because I can't do it any other way, because that's a reality today, and I can't say that it's not true. It is true. So that's why minorities that succeed, even outside of hockey, that has their own businesses and have a lot of success, is because of hard work. They work harder than the next person next to them because they know that they have to shine even more, because at equal field, they're going to take the next guy. So they have to bring it another level to get the job.
Okay, George, we're almost out of time, but there's one more topic we have to address. The mass protests, I guess, are enough to make us think that we're over COVID-19, but we're not. So Louie has the final question.
Yeah, George, I know you contracted COVID-19 and had a real battle with that. You have asthma, so it gave you some real concerns and problems. You were in the hospital. I texted you at that time and, said throw less, because I know you're a big guy and you're a fighter and you're going to fight through this. But explain that situation. Must have been very scary for you. And are you feeling better now, or are you over it?
Yeah, I'm pretty much over it now because I've been running. Actually, 5 days after I came back to the hospital, I kept my marathon running 10Ks 5-6 times a week. I'm running so much to lose so much weight to catch up to you when we play charity game in Edmonton, Louie, because you blew by me a couple years ago in a charity game. I said never again. So because of my breathing and because of my asthma, because my breathing was kind of harder when I went to the hospital. You worried a bit because you don't want it to get worse. That's why they give me a bit of oxygen. But the thing that I worried the most about is I was delivering food to the elderly before I was contracted with COVID. And what I was most afraid of is the fact that it infected any of them, because some of the elderly that I was giving food to, they had cancer. And if I would have given at the age that they were, I would have killed them. That's what I worried the most about. So thankfully, when I got contracted and I told them, they all got tested and it was all negative. So everybody was fine. I was more relieved. But once I was at the hospital, I knew I was going to be okay because I'm younger and I'm in good shape and I was moving around and I was doing breathing exercise, taking natural product to help clear my lungs because I got diagnosed with a double pneumonia. So after 4 days, I was supposed to be at the hospital for 2 weeks. After 4 days, I felt better. Doctor came to me and was like, you could finish your confinement at home if you feel good. And I felt good. I went home and 5 days later, I started to run and everything was good. So what I say to people is that this thing is serious, but if you're not afraid because you're in good shape and you're younger, be afraid to your surrounding that might not have the condition to withstand this. That's what we have to think about with this thing. People that are around us, living around us, because if I would have killed somebody with a virus because I had it, that would have been something that I would never be able to live with.
George, it's good to see you on the road to full recovery. You look good, and we really thank you for your perspective today.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. That was awesome.
Thanks, George.
Thank you all for watching on YouTube, Facebook, and sportsnet.ca. Join us every Sunday at 9 a.m. ET. Be safe. See you next time.